there's kind of two parts, two answers to that, which basically both. So yes to both. There was absolute confirmation that this was that a problem worth solving, and that we were going in the right direction, and that the RFP process, which is the question that we started out with, was broken, and just as I said earlier, a time sink and a very costly exercise. But what we discovered was there's two other elements to it that we hadn't really been focusing on, that were complementary, and we brought into and have included now in what we're, the vision of what we're trying to build. In the first place, it's what we're calling Tinder for corporates, where the buyer, before they even get to the point of issuing an RFP, have huge difficulty in understanding who to even invite to respond to that RFP, depending what they're, if it's a new custodian, well, they'll know who the players are there. But if it's a new digital marketing firm, or if it's a new reg tech firm, anything that's particularly those dynamic tech kind of enables, spaces or sectors, it's very hard for as I know myself, it's very hard for the participants in those sectors to keep abreast of what's going on, let alone a buyer who's dipping in to try to buy something to solve a regulatory problem and go in and understand, well, who are the best and the greatest in the reg tech space, or digital marketing, same thing, or any sector. And so what we started to see there was a need for, as I was saying, Tinder for corporates, and an ability for buyers to come in and quickly and easily find suppliers that might be relevant for what they're interested in having solved. So that was one layer that we hadn't seen at the outset, that kind of sat before, if you like, the procurement layer, the RFP layer. And then the third that came out loud and clear from some of those workshops was a need for certification, validation, pre-qualification. There's lots of different kind of terminology around it, but allowed buyers to, and it was good for the suppliers as well, because we came across a lot of cases where suppliers had quote unquote won the business. So they pitched for an RFP. They were the chosen partner of the business side of the firm that they were pitching to, where the person in there who had the problem to solve wanted to do business with that firm, only to be found when they went to procurement or to compliance that actually, for some reason, they're not big enough, they're not long enough in track records, or whatever reason, they didn't pass muster and they weren't able to do business. And so they didn't actually win the RFP at all. But both sides had wasted an awful lot of time and effort. So to remove that and pre-qualify, and the supplier would much prefer to be qualified out at the outset if they can't possibly win it, and save all that time and effort. That's where things like certifications and qualifications and other things came into being. And in particular, the first amongst equals, if you like, was somewhere around, we kind of incorporated in February last year, but it was even before that. It was kind of the end of January. We were beginning some of these market validation calls, and ESG came up as a really key challenge, opportunity, question mark amongst the procurement professionals within these asset managers that we were talking to. And what we did, it was a trick we had kind of been party to in Silverfinch, John Dowdle and I, back in the day. And we put together, what's that trick? It's basically, it's a way to facilitate a conversation. So we put together an ESG user group or working group, and invited what ultimately became 10 participants. And it includes, Aberdeen and Bailey Gifford and Aegon, both the insurer and the asset manager, First Centier, and a few others, including CSS, where John and I had previously worked. And they've met monthly since January of last year to discuss ESG and what it means and what the challenges are and what the problem, what the opportunities are on the procurement side. Because ESG, which is around environmental, social, and governance issues, challenges, and basically becoming better corporate citizens, is the term I like to use. ESG has been for quite some time a focus on the fund side of asset managers. And even on the business side, there's three pillars: the kind of product side or the fund side. So the business itself, its diversity policy, its carbon footprint and everything. But the third, and the kind of weakest in terms of time and effort and maturity, is the supply chain. And that's where our focus was with these procurement professionals. And so, the conversation happened over the last well, 12 months at this stage, but somewhere around August, we settled on what we're calling an ESG passport, or a Pulse ESG passport, and a self-assessment questionnaire, which allows buyers and their suppliers to begin a conversation about something that's very important to the buyers. It's, it's ESG is top 3 on the boardroom priorities in most financial firms in the UK and in Europe, but it's not on the supplier side. So for these procurement professionals to engage their suppliers and begin a conversation around ESG, this passport allowed us to facilitate that conversation on the platform. And that became very exciting, and we're going to extend now the passport to not just ESG, to be cybersecurity and other areas of the RFP questionnaire in due course. So yeah, so to answer your question, I think, which was originally, it did validate that we were on the right path, but it gave us a couple of additional elements or nuances that we hadn't perhaps seen at the outset to focus on.